I will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
House of the Dragon is back in production. Here we are on day 1 of season 3. Action.
Likely the Battle of the Gullet, one of the biggest naval battles in the history of Westeros. Over the last few weeks, thanks to Unbox PhD, we've been seeing videos and images of them building massive ships on set, preparing for some kind of big naval sequence. And given how Season 2 ended with the Triarchy heading for Westeros, it's pretty safe to say that the Battle of the Gullet is going to kick off Season 3. And thanks to an interview with Entertainment Weekly, we are now learning some more details about this naval battle, with Ryan Condal stating, "We are working on one of the biggest naval sequences ever filmed. It's mind-boggling. This is probably the most complex sequence ever made for television. And if they have any hope of pulling off something like the Battle of the Gullet, they're going to need to film something spectacular, as it not only involves hundreds of ships, but also multiple different dragons as well, not to mention a few heartbreaking scenes in between. After all, there is quite a bit riding on this battle. If they're going to win back some of the fans that were less than pleased at the ending of Season 2, they're going to have to start Season 3 off right, especially when it comes to a massive book event like the Battle of the Gullet, which just so happens to feature the death of a major character. We also had some very interesting casting announcements as well, starting with the most exciting in the bunch, Tommy Flanagan cast as Sir Roderick Dustin, aka Roddy the Ruin, the leader of Cregan Stark's Winter Wolves. We hear mention of the Winter Wolves in Season 1 when Jace goes to visit Cregan at the Wall, and Cregan pledges 2,000 Greybeards to his army. But do not be fooled by the Greybeards. These are no mere old men, but some of the most grizzled warriors in the history of Westeros, led by the fearless Lord of Barrowtown, Roderick Dustin, which is now confirmed to be played by Tommy Flanagan of Sons of Anarchy. And while I did picture Roderick Dustin to be a little bit older, I am super excited to see Tommy Flanagan land this role, as he is a phenomenal actor, and I imagine he's going to bring a certain dynamic to this character that's going to be very interesting to see on screen.
Oh yeah.
And given some of the massive scenes that the Winter Wolves and Roderick Dustin are going to be involved in, I get the feeling he is going to be a heavy fan favorite in Season 3. Especially when we arrive at the Butcher's Ball, a massive battle that he will be heavily featured in. And while unfortunately we probably will not see Cregan again until the end of the story, rest assured the Winter Wolves will definitely be doing House Stark justice. But next, we are also hearing that actor James Norton has been cast as Ormond Hightower, which, according to Ryan Condal, is going to be a heavily featured role in Season 3. Ormond Hightower is the nephew of Otto Hightower and the current Lord of Oldtown, and it is likely through him that we will probably be meeting Daeron Targaryen in Season 3 as well, with Daeron being the third and youngest son of King Viserys and Alicent Hightower, who we have yet to meet on the show. Up until this point, Ormond and Daeron have been down in Oldtown during all of the events that have transpired on the show, but it looks like they are finally mounting up and heading into the fray for Season 3, and both will have some pretty big parts to play as well. And while we unfortunately do not yet know the name of the actor portraying Daeron Targaryen, we have heard confirmation that he is indeed a big part of the story. But up next, we also have Dan Folger, who has been cast as Torrhen Manderly, a knight and the second son of Lord Desmond Manderly during the Dance of the Dragons. It is said that he is a clever, courtly man, well-spoken and disciplined, and should have a few interesting parts to play during the Dance of the Dragons. Personally, I'm looking forward to Tommy Flanagan as Roderick Dustin the most out of these new castings. He has been such an iconic character from Fire and Blood for so long, it'll be interesting to finally see him portrayed on screen. But unfortunately, filming beginning and new castings aren't the only news coming out of the House of the Dragon set, as we also have the latest in the feud between George R.R. Martin and showrunner Ryan Condal. We first saw the beginning of this conflict after the end of Season 2, with George voicing some of his concerns about some of the changes that House of the Dragon made. George, of course, has always been a source material absolutist and has often remarked many different times in the past how current writers always try to put their own spin on things instead of just adapting the material as is, which apparently is something that George started noticing with House of the Dragon in Season 2, as he has made comments from everything from the slight changes to Blood and Cheese, to the omission of Maelor, and to even the omission of Nettles herself. And from a writer's standpoint, you can kind of understand why he might feel a little put off by this, as both of these characters go on to have some pretty important roles in the future of the Dance of the Dragons. And from Ryan's perspective, it is simply just a matter of practicality. Some things do not always translate from book to screen. And recently, when doing an interview with Entertainment Weekly, when asked about George's comments, Ryan stated he did everything he could to reach out to George to get him involved in the adaptation process, and how as they got further down the road, he just became reluctant to acknowledge the practicalities at hand in a reasonable way. And also went on to state that he just needs to keep marching, for the good of the crew, the cast, and HBO, and went on to add that he can only hope that he and George rediscover that harmony someday, which unfortunately at this point is rather unlikely. After all, George does still remain bitter about the ending of Game of Thrones to this day, so I highly doubt him and Ryan Condal are going to bury the hatchet anytime soon. And without having George to lean on, it now relies solely in the hands of Ryan Condal to keep this show moving, which does have some fans worried given the ending of Season 2 and how some felt it was incomplete. One thing's for sure, Ryan certainly has a very tall task ahead of him bringing Season 3 to life, while hopefully trying to win some fans back that were less than pleased at the end of Season 2. And I do believe House of the Dragon Season 3 could potentially set the tone for the rest of the Game of Thrones universe going forward, both in terms of how much confidence fans have in the IP, and whether or not fatigue will set in. There certainly appears to be a lot riding on this season. If there was ever a time that HBO needed a win in the A Song of Ice and Fire department, it certainly is now. Season 3 probably has the biggest concentration of very big battles from the book that we're ever going to see in a single season, many of which are incredibly iconic to the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom. And how they adapt some of these big battles and some of the other big moments from Fire and Blood is ultimately going to determine whether they succeed or fail in Season 3, as fans will most likely be keeping a very close eye on how accurately they stick to the source material after Season 2's deviations. After all, there was a notable contrast between Season 1 and Season 2. After Season 1 had aired, the entire fandom, for the most part, was very much behind House of the Dragon and behind Ryan Condal, even dubbing him the quote-unquote keeper of the lore, compared to the less than enthusiastic response that some fans had to Season 2 and a lot of the faith that they lost in Ryan Condal personally. So heading into Season 3, it's interesting to see what kind of season are we going to get? What kind of House of the Dragon are we going to be presented with? The House of the Dragon Season 1 that nearly united an entire fandom after Game of Thrones Season 8 destroyed it?
House of the Dragon is back in production. Here we are on day 1 of Season 3. Action.
Dracarys.
I will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.